Introduction. Today language is viewed as a skill, rather than as knowledge. What does this mean? If you want to acquire knowledge about any subject, you read books or listen to lectures. For example, if you want to know about the Mughal rule in India, you read history books, or you listen to talks, lectures on this topic. Thus, you acquire more knowledge. On the other hand, if you want to learn singing, you don't read books on singing, you practice singing until you attain competence. The same is true of dancing, painting, cycling or swimming. These are known as skills. Skills are acquired through practice. Language is also regarded as a skill by experts. The more you speak, the more fluent you become. The more you read, the faster you can read. There are, as you know, 4 linguistic skills: listening, speaking, reading and writing. These 4 skills have to be mastered by any user of the language. If you want to study anything through a language, you have to master what are known as study skills. In the next section we shall make an attempt to define study skills and also look at the various types of study skills. What are study skills? In very simple terms, study skills may be defined as skills which help learners to study more efficiently. There are 2 ways of being more effective learners: a. Directly by studying to increase your knowledge of the subject matter. B. Indirectly by improving your ability to learn independently and at will. We must be careful to distinguish linguistic skills from study skills. Linguistic skills help you to communicate. Study skills, on the other hand, enable you to study, and the process of study involves 4 operations: perception, comprehension, retention and retrieval. In other words, you should first perceive what is relevant to your needs, and select only those areas which are important. You cannot study everything available in every book, every internet site you can lay hands on. Your study must be focused, and for this you need to develop the skill of reading with comprehension. What is not understood is not learnt. Comprehension thus constitutes an important stage in the process of learning. However, mere comprehension does not guarantee mastery of the subject, for human memory is so transient that what is understood may easily be forgotten, hence you have to make special efforts to retain what you have learnt. Different students adopt different means towards retention. Some students blindly memorize the whole lesson. Brighter learners, however, try to remember the basic principles in the form of short notes, which could be paraphrased later. The last stage in the learning process involves the retrieval of what has been learnt. When required, for example, in the examination hall, you should be able to retrieve all that you have learnt throughout the year. We shall look at each of these sub-skills of study in greater detail. In the literature on study skills, we refer to 3 major types of study skills corresponding to the 4 operations in the process of study. They are a. Gathering skills, perception, comprehension. B. Storing skills, retention. C. Retrieval skills, retrieval. Gathering skills. These skills enable learners to identify and locate relevant information. These skills include reference skills and sub-skills of reading, viz., scanning and skimming. Together they equip the learner with the tools to find sources of information. Reference skills can be further subdivided according to the material to be consulted into the following: use of dictionary, thesaurus, etc. Use of library. Reference skills. Use of dictionary, thesaurus, etc. As we know, a very important source of information in ESL, English as a second language, teaching, learning situation is the dictionary. Most of our learners use a bilingual dictionary and consult the dictionary when they encounter a problem with the meaning of a word. The use of a dictionary just to check the meaning is a valid use, but also one of the many uses a dictionary can be put to. A good monolingual dictionary of English for learners is the most invaluable source of information regarding the knowledge of a word, which involves pronunciation, spelling, meaning, core meaning and extended meanings, grammar, collocations, idiomatic expressions, associations, etc. Refer to the unit on enhancing vocabulary skills. The dictionary remains an underutilized source of information, if it is used at all. Every dictionary comes with a section at the beginning telling us how to use it with detailed annotated examples. However, these introductory sections often remain unread. Yet it is almost peremptory that learners know that an entry for a word is made up of several parts. Different symbols and typefaces indicate key features of the word, its pronunciation, for example, and how to spell its various forms, as well as its definitions and grammatical information. Here is an entry from the Longman Active Study Dictionary of English for accessible. The island is accessible only by boat. The headword is accessible. The space within the two slanting lines tells us about the pronunciation, for which phonetic symbols are used. After the pronunciation comes the information about the word class, i.e. the part of speech it belongs to. The abbreviation adjective tells us that accessible is an adjective. This is followed by the meaning, after which is given an example illustrating the use of the word in a particular context. Then we get the opposite of the word. Last of all, another word, accessibility, is mentioned, which is a derivative from accessible. We are given information about its word class, i.e. noun, and are told that it is an uncountable noun, indicated by u in square brackets. The meaning is not repeated. We give below a few tasks through which learners can be taught how to exploit the full potential of a dictionary. We are using the Longman Active Study Dictionary of English for the tasks. Task 1: Alphabetical ordering. The words are given in the dictionary in simple alphabetical order. You should be able to decide which word comes after or before another word. Find the word in each column, which is not in alphabetical order. Put it in its correct place. A. Behalf, bellyful, believe, behave, belly button. B. Sector, secondly, secret, second nature, Santa Claus. Task 2: Spelling and pronunciation. The dictionary gives the spelling and pronunciation of the words. The pronunciation is given in phonetic script. You should make yourself familiar with the phonetic symbols and the sounds they represent. I in two of the following words IE has been wrongly used in place of A. Use a dictionary to find them. Believe, rechieve, retrieve, perceive, grieve. Use a dictionary to find the silent letters in the words given below, i.e. the letters which are not pronounced. For example, the letter B is not pronounced in climb, comb, island, knife, palm, psychology. Task 3: Word class labels. The dictionary mentions the word class for every entry, which tells us whether a word is an adjective, a verb, or a preposition. Consult a dictionary to see which word class the following words belong to. Some of the words may belong to more than one word class. Mind, chair, please, in, vegetable, game. Task 4: Grammar. The dictionary gives us the information whether a particular noun is countable or uncountable. It tells us whether a verb is used with or without an object, or whether an adjective is or is not followed by a noun, and many other kinds of information about the grammar of a word. I use a dictionary to find out which of the following words are used in singular, in plural, or both. If in plural, then also find the spelling and the pronunciation. House, milk, news, progress, in-laws. Look up the following verbs in a dictionary and say whether they are used with an object, without an object, or in either way. Bring, cross, fill, keep, remain. Task 5: Meaning. The dictionary may give more than one meaning for an entry. When consulting a dictionary, you should be able to find the right meaning for the word used in a text. Look at the entry for the word free, taken from the Longman Active Study Dictionary of English, which has 3 different meanings. Below are also given 3 citations in which free is used in different senses. Match the senses with the citations. Free, fry, skeptical, smiley face, adjective. 1. Able to act as you wish, and not limited or controlled. 2. Not a prisoner. 3. Costing nothing. Citations. 1. All political prisoners will be set free next week. 2. I've got a couple of free tickets for tonight's concert. 3. People are demanding the right to free speech and a free press. Task 6: Collocations and idioms. The dictionary gives us information about the way certain words collocate with certain other words. The dictionary also makes available to us idioms, i.e. combinations of words with a fixed meaning in which the meaning is not deducible from the combination of the given words. Using a thesaurus. The word thesaurus means a treasure house in Latin, and it is indeed a treasure house of words for a writer. But it needs careful handling. The basic point to keep in mind is that a thesaurus is not a substitute for a dictionary. It is a word finder. It is a handy tool to help recall a word that has slipped the mind, and it gives us many alternative ways of writing when we want to express ourselves more elegantly and effectively. But we have to remember that a thesaurus does not tell us how to use a particular word or expression. For that we need a dictionary. Use of library. When using a library, learners should know how to use the catalog to locate the book they are looking for. In modern times, catalogs are computerized, hence some knowledge of computers is essential. After they know how to locate the material, they should learn how to refer to the material. Every book that they think is relevant may not be really useful. Many times they have to make choices. They have to select not only relevant books but also relevant chapters of books and relevant articles for purposes of study. It is not possible to go through every book, every chapter, and every article in depth before they decide whether it contains useful information or not. So the learners have to know the techniques to make a quick survey and try to make a guess if the material is relevant to their specific need. This requires training in surveying skills. Some of the questions we can ask are: is the material relevant to the subject I am interested in? Which parts are relevant? Is it a recent publication or an old one? If an old one, is it a reprint? Is it by a known author? What is the level at which it is pitched? What are the comments about it? Parts of the book that may help you answer your questions are, as given in Wallace, 1988. 1. The publisher's blurb, i.e. the publisher's description of what the book is about, usually to be found on the book jacket. 2. Reviewers' comments, often also found quoted on the book jacket, but remember only the good reviews will be quoted. 3. The foreword or preface. 4. The contents page. 5. The index. 6. The printing history, i.e. when the book was first published, reprinted, new edition issued, usually printed on one of the early pages. Other parts worth looking at while surveying a book are the title and the subtitle, if any, which help us anticipate the main theme of the text, the first chapter, which contains the introduction, and the last chapter, in which the author generally summarizes her arguments and presents her conclusion. When reading a chapter or an article or a large passage, we must survey it by looking at the title, which often hints at the main idea either directly or indirectly, and by reading the first sentence in each paragraph, which often contains the main idea to be developed in greater detail in subsequent sentences. Sometimes the first and the last paragraph of a chapter may also help you get at the main drift of the chapter. Skimming and scanning. The reference skills have to be complemented by training in skimming and scanning, the two sub-skills of reading, which require a different reading style and speed, dictated by one's purpose in reading. Let us again understand what we mean by skimming and scanning. Skimming involves searching for the main ideas of a text by reading the first and last paragraphs or by looking for the topic sentences in each paragraph, noting other organizational clues such as semantic markers or summaries used by the author. Skimming does not require reading each and every word of the text, because the purpose of the reading is looking for the main drift of the text. Scanning involves rapidly glancing down the page looking for specific facts or key phrases. Every text has an organizational framework, and it is important to see how different parts of a text hang together. We can say that every text is based on a ground plan, which looks roughly like this. Introduction, a general statement. The main idea, a hypothesis or a thesis statement. Elaboration and development. Details, definitions, illustrations, comparisons, and contrasts. Conclusion, restating the thesis. Finalizing discussion. All the parts are linked together through linking devices, through repetition of keywords and phrases, through semantic signals. When reading a text, untrained learners sometimes get bogged down in detail and are not able to get to the main ideas. They are not able to follow the organizational clues and tend to plod through the text word for word, trying to cram it all in. For this reason, training in the skimming and scanning techniques is very crucial. Learners must understand thoroughly the main concepts of the text, and then once they are familiar with the conceptual framework, they will be in a better position to master the details. Thus, a preliminary skimming builds the foundation of more intensive reading and maximum understanding. It gives the learner a logical framework to fit the details in. Similarly, scanning skills are valuable as an aid to locating new terms, definitions, dates, or formulas as in a science textbook. The learner also needs to scan charts and figures, for they present the facts in a graphic form. The use of these skills will help not only in reducing the time for intensive reading but also in retaining the details of the text. Task 7. This exercise helps you trace the organization of a text and get to the main ideas. This exercise is partly based on the exercise in Study Skills in English, Michael J. Wallace, Cambridge, Cambridge University Press, 1980. 1. Using the title. The passage given below is entitled, The Surface of the Earth. Does the title tell you something? 2. Survey. Survey the passage by reading the first sentence of every paragraph and the last paragraph. Very often the first sentence may contain the main idea, though sometimes the main idea may come in the middle or at the end. 3. Anticipation. Now you should be able to ask yourself anticipation questions, i.e. questions which you think should be answered by the text. 4. Read. Read through the passage quickly. Note your reading time. 5. Try to answer your anticipation questions. Refer back to the text to check your answers. 6. Organization. Make an outline or draw a diagram to capture the main ideas. We shall take this up in the next section when we talk of storage skills. 7. Summary. Using your outline or diagram, write a summary of the passage. We shall talk about the summarizing skill in the section on retrieval skills. The following passage is taken from Working with English, Workbook for Class 11, Core Course, P88. The surface of the earth. To most of us the face of the earth, with its mountains, rivers, plains, and seas, does not seem to change at all. But if we happen to live in certain places, perhaps near an active volcano, or a powerful, swift-flowing river, or on the coast, we may be able to see some change taking place, the river changing its course, or the sea wearing down parts of the cliffs. In fact, these changes are going on all the time, but usually so slowly that there is hardly anything that can be measured in a man's lifetime. But a man's lifetime is so short that it hardly counts in the history of the earth, when a valley becomes deeper by only 1 inch each 100 years, and even that is only a comparatively short time in the whole life of the earth. Running water, glaciers, the wind and currents of the seas, heat and cold, and plants have all been working together for billions of years, changing the face of the earth. Changes begin with the breaking up of rock into pieces that can be moved. Rock becomes broken up either by force of one kind or another, or by being rotted by chemicals dissolved in rainwater, or in streams and rivers. When rock has been cracked or broken by force, it is more easily rotted by chemical action, and rock that has been rotted is more easily broken by force. All rocks cannot be broken equally easily by force, since they are made of different materials and in different ways. Some began to break up deep underground. They were cracked and splintered as they cooled or as they were twisted and pushed by the forces which shaped the mountains. Those that were made in layers break most easily between the layers where they are weakest. Natural forces that break up rock masses use such cracks and lines of weakness. Tiny plants may root themselves in the cracks of rocks, and as they grow, their roots grow too and push, opening the cracks and in time even splitting the rock. Water and frost are powerful rock splitters. Water may freeze in a crack, and, as water expands when it turns into ice, the ice presses on the crack and makes it bigger. Most swift-flowing streams carry downstream rocks and boulders, and as these are rolled and swung along by the water, they strike the rock in the stream banks and bed and break off pieces. Forest fires often weaken and crack rocks, and rocks can also be shattered by lightning. These many ways of breaking up rock go on everywhere in the world. They work most quickly in places where the rocks have cracks and weaknesses, where there are many trees and plants with strong, pushing roots, and in cold climates where there is frequent freezing and thawing. Storage skills. In this section we shall consider the ways in which we can store the information, knowledge we have gathered for later use. The ways in which we do this are a. Note-taking, in class, and b. Note-making, at home or in the library. These skills are important as an aid to understanding and comprehension, a record of facts and processes, an aid to jog one's memory later on, a record of different points of view, an aid for further study, a summary of arguments and ideas, a check that one does not fall asleep. As the name suggests, storage skills involve the ability to store information for ready retrieval and use. You may ask, what is so difficult about storing information? Once we have read and understood some information, is it not automatically stored in the memory? I would say, partly yes, and partly no. What does this mean? We do remember what we read, listen to, but not everything. So, most of us hasten to copy down important facts. If we are not properly trained, we would waste a lot of time in copying. Further, just before the examination, when the students revise all the lessons, it would be just impossible for them to read through hundreds of pages. They should have the notes in a brief and precise form, ready for quick reference. In fact, each student adopts her own way of storing information. However, he will benefit greatly from a training in storing skills. Storing skills are of two major categories. A. Note-taking, which involves listening to lectures and taking down notes, i.e. the main and subordinate points. This is a skill every student needs to master. B. Note-making is very similar to note-taking, except for the fact that note-making involves reading books and making notes, whereas note-taking involves listening to a lecture and taking down notes. Note-making is a more leisurely activity. Both the skills above may be divided into the following sub-skills. I. Comprehension of the text, lecture. E. Identification of the main points. E. Distinguishing main factors from subordinate ones. IV. Deciding on the order of priority among the various points. V. Identifying the organization of points. Vi. Organizing the points into a visual display. Note-making and note-taking are meant only for the student's private use. Hence he is free to use any abbreviation, symbol, etc., although it would be a good idea to use standard reduction devices. We will be discussing these skills in the next unit in detail. We have given you some tasks which you may attempt on your own to hone your skills. A. Note-making. Task 8. Read the following passage and then fill in the notes below. Up to the end of the 18th century, smallpox was a particularly dreaded disease, not only because it was often fatal but also because those who recovered were permanently disfigured. A very large proportion of the population bore the marks of smallpox on their faces. In the 17th century, people in Turkey began to inject themselves deliberately with mild forms of smallpox with the hope of making themselves immune to severe attacks. Sometimes they developed a light infection as a reaction. Sometimes they suffered the very disfigurement or death they had sought to avoid. It was a risky business, but people were willing to risk the horror in order to escape from it. Certain country folk in England believed that a case of cowpox, a disease that attacked cows and sometimes people, would make a person immune to both cowpox and smallpox. An English doctor, Edward Jenner, decided that there might be some truth in this folk superstition. Milkmaids, he noticed, were particularly prone not to be pockmarked by smallpox. Very cautiously Jenner began to test this notion. In 1796, he decided to make the supreme test. Now fill in the blanks in the notes below. 1. Smallpox, a dreaded disease till the end of the 18th century. Reasons. A. B. Attempts to conquer smallpox. Turkey, 17th century. Risky method. Injecting mild forms of smallpox. Task 9. Notes may also be made diagrammatically. Read the passage below. Students can acquire information in several ways. Their teachers give lectures, conduct tutorials and issue handouts. They can read library books, listen to the radio or watch TV and thus learn from other experts. They can get information from fellow students through seminars or informal conversations. They can also learn by themselves by thinking about the subject when they're alone. Now fill in the diagram below. Acquiring information from teachers, handouts, tutorials, lectures, adapted from Study Skills in English. Michael J. Wallace, Cambridge University Press, 1980. B. Diagramming, information transfer. The diagrammatic presentation of notes as seen in the task above is also known as diagramming. Diagrams are of various types: trees, pie charts, histograms, graphs, tables, etc. Such visual display can be grasped quickly and also facilitates retention. In most disciplines, writers resort to such diagrammatic or visual presentation, e.g. labeling of the digestive system or genealogy of a king, etc. Information transfer means the restatement of verbal information in non-verbal form or vice versa. Task 10. The following pie chart represents the budget of the family of Mr. Iqbal. Study it carefully and rewrite it in the form of a paragraph. Retrieval skills. While writing an examination, or participating in a conference or seminar, students need to summarize their ideas in a coherent form, so that their readers can understand them. Or sometimes they have to prepare a research abstract based on their reading. The student will of course base their summary or abstract on the notes they had prepared earlier. The length of a summary may vary depending on the purpose for which it is intended. Generally, the précis in the examination papers is required to be 1/3 of the original, but all summaries need not be so. Summarizing is not an exercise to be learned for use in the classroom alone. It has relevance for life. We can summarize articles, chapters and even books for future reference. If you are a secretary, your boss may ask you to present the gist of a document. A newspaper reporter's job is to summarize speeches and reports. Scientists and researchers read abstracts of important books, papers to keep themselves up to date and save time as well. A good summary requires several skills on the part of the student: reading, comprehension, analysis, judgment, clarity, brevity, etc. Why do students need training in study skills? Students have two types of goals. The short-term goal is to pass the examination. The long-term goal, on the other hand, is to prepare for life. In other words, the second goal extends beyond examinations. In order to achieve both these goals, you need to know how to study. Hence the importance of study skills. It is a sad reflection on our education system that our learners do not know the study skills even in relation to their mother tongue. They do not know how to locate information or make notes even when they refer to books in the vernacular. Very often, the English teacher tells them what study skills are, as well as how to develop them. By training them in study skills, the teacher indirectly helps them to study their other subjects more efficiently. Who taught you study skill? Many students feel that conscious learning of study skills is not necessary. They think that study skills are learnt unconsciously. There is no need to be taught how to make notes. We can learn it on our own. There is no need to waste precious class time on such trivialities. There are two basic flaws in this argument. Firstly, we know from experience that most students do not learn study skills on their own. Even when they join the undergraduate course, they do not know how to make notes or how to write a summary. They lift words at random and string them together and call it a précis. The concept of note-making is totally strange to them. Secondly, even learners who can learn these skills on their own might take a long time doing so. In the absence of guidance, they have to adopt the trial and error method to develop these skills. If, on the other hand, they are given some training, they will learn these quickly. This, in turn, will accelerate their pace of learning the other subjects as well. Instead of regarding the time spent on developing study skills as a waste of time, it is necessary to regard it as a wise investment, so expend some effort in developing study skills. Study skills are needed at all levels. Even children at the primary level need them. For example, identifying the moral of a story is a study skill. Locating answers to questions is another study skill. As students go to higher classes, the nature of study skills becomes more complex. Learning to learn, as we pointed out earlier, is more important than learning per se. Let us sum up. These are some of the points that you have been made aware of in this unit. Language is a skill, not knowledge. Skills are acquired through practice. Study skills are different from the four linguistic skills of listening, speaking, reading and writing. Study skills enable learners to study more efficiently. The process of study involves three operations: perception, retention and retrieval. There are three study skills corresponding to the four operations, namely, gathering skills, storage skills and retrieval skills. Gathering skills help learners to locate and comprehend sources of information, e.g. use of a dictionary, skimming, scanning, etc. Storage skills enable learners to store information for ready retrieval and use, e.g. note-making, note-taking, diagramming. Retrieval skills help learners to retrieve information when they need it, e.g. summarizing. Students need training in study skills.